Right, good morning, everyone. Welcome you to this morning's meeting of the York and North Yorkshire Combined Authority Audit and Governance Committee, and we have a rather large agenda, I'm afraid. Please note that the meeting today is being live broadcast, so members are reminded to use the microphones provided. And in terms of getting best reproduction, they need to be quite near to you, and don't put laptops between you and the microphone. You press the green button to speak, and then press it again to switch it off afterwards. We're not expecting a fire alarm today, but if one does take place, please exit the building, down the stairs and out the entrance, and assemble opposite the entrance, please. We have apologies for absence from Councillors Hollier, Melly and Pearson. Councillor Pearson is being substituted by Councillor Masterman, so welcome. Yeah, sorry, looking around the table, I've lost him. Right, okay. Right, if we turn to item 2, the draft minutes of the meeting held on the 13th of January. And if I could seek a proposer and seconder for those minutes. Thank you. Okay, so that's moved and seconded, and sorry, I should have asked, are we happy that they're a correct record first? Yep. Okay, can I see all those in favour of those minutes, please? Thank you. If we then move on to the draft minutes of the 27th of February, can I, again, are we happy that they're a true and correct record? Seeing no dissent. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Move one, seconder. Right, thank you. And can we agree to they be signed as a true and correct record? Thank you very much. Okay, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? No. Okay, thank you very much. Right, public participation. No public questions or statements were received by the deadline of 12 noon on the Monday, the 13th. So if we move to item 5, the 2025-26 internal audit progress report. Right, Stuart, I think you're leading on this. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Paragraphs 9 to 12 on page 23 provide an update on the work. Also, the report itself provides an update on the position of follow-up work. Just want to highlight to members that there's a slight change in terms of content. You'll note on paragraphs 6 to 8 on page 23, following the agreement of the internal audit framework by this committee last quarter, the report's been expanded a little to make reference to any outcomes from ongoing conversations with RSM, who provide the internal audit service for the fire and the police side of the combined authority. Paragraphs, as I say, 9 to 12 on page 23 provide the update of the work, but there's greater detail in Appendix A on page 25. Just one thing to note to members, I tried to give a little bit of an idea of which ones were closer to completion by increasing the category and having one that's fieldwork close to completion. In conversation with colleagues on the performance management audit work, we have met with officers to discuss the in a closing meeting, the findings, and are just going through the QA checks now with our reports to be able to issue that this week, and then for officers to have already had awareness of those areas that we're raising as findings which require action. So hope with that extra involvement to be able to turn that from draft to final relatively promptly. Mindful of a large agenda and that members will have already read this report, happy to take any questions on the internal audit progress report for 25-26. Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions from members? Stuart, if I could just ask one. In terms of the 8 areas that we were meant to deal with in the last financial year, we actually only achieved 3 within years. Are there particular reasons why we didn't achieve more within the year?
I suppose when you look at the individual audits, the three that are at the top, the performance management, payroll and risk management, were originally allocated and started working around about November. So we have found with it the first time of doing these audits and wanting to pitch the work in the right way. Deborah's been involved with the risk management audit, for example, and we're meeting on Friday to talk about that. There's been particular challenges in that instance because a member of staff has left, but also wanting to try and just get the value out of understanding the work has taken a little bit longer. And the transitional arrangements as the organisation themselves have moved with new people joining just means that the capacity to drop everything for audit isn't always there as well. We've been working with the deadlines for April and first half of May to meet the opinion to allow a little bit more slack, shall we say, to help everybody get all their competing demands completed. So that's kind of, in an ideal world going forward with next year, we would be, for audits that we would start, say, in November, looking with offices to have a more compact and concise deadline to finish work soon.
Okay, thank you. If there's no follow-up questions from anyone, can we agree to note the progress made in delivering the 2025-26 internal audit programme of work? Thank you very much. Let's move on then to item 6, the internal audit work programme for 26-27. Stuart.
Thank you, Chair. I think established members of any audit committee know that the audit cycle kind of starts before the previous one's finished in terms of a plan being presented before the opinion. And in agenda item 6, starting on page 31, we provide our introduction, which gives our background, hopefully to give members of this committee comfort and in their governance role in terms of internal audits being provided to the necessary standards, even if it might be a little dry in terms of some of the content. It's important for this committee to appreciate that the basis of the inputs that we put into creating the output of the plan is supported with the Veritas practice, which is in line with all the necessary standards. The detail itself is on page 34 onwards. As going back to those inputs, we met with senior management team. I've met separately with Mike as well to help provide a breadth of work that builds on where the organisation is. There's an emphasis more on governance and programme delivery. Members will see if they've got a recollection of the first 2 years of audit plans. We're moving more into some of those organisational development areas as well. So on page 34, we've given an idea of what the scope of work likely will be. We'll, in those instances, agree with officers when we come to complete the work, the exact scope that we do. The emphasis at the moment is to finish the last year's work. So in April and May, we don't anticipate starting any of these. We want to get the old year stuff done and dusted, but we've got an idea of a best way of doing some of these audits already through those earlier conversations. One thing just to, again, highlight to members, in Appendix B on page 35, we're highlighting the outcomes or the outputs of the RSM internal audit work to help you have that wider perspective of some of the assurances that they're providing. Obviously, the JIAC and IAC committees are the primary recipients of their plans, and on the 24th of March, approved both of those audit plans, which include a number of audits that have relevance for combined authority governance responsibilities. Happy to take any questions, Chair. Thank you.
Are there any questions from members? Can I perhaps just ask, well, make a comment rather than perhaps a question? In terms of Appendix A and the list, the third one down, programme management, that's got the emphasis on arrangements in place. I suspect as members, we're probably perhaps more interested in some senses in the delivery. So I wondered if that perhaps could be slightly widened to look at that aspect as well.
Don't see why not, Chair. What I'll do is I'll take that back with Mike Russell, who was the through main conversation with Mike. He was keen on that, and we can look to expand things into the delivery side of things. Thank you.
Okay, and my other comment was on Appendix B. Thank you very much for this. That's very welcome. I think my only sort of reaction to it is whether it might be possible to include just a list of the previous couple of years, so that we can actually see how this fits again, what's been previously covered, what's coming up for repeats, so that we actually have a better sense of what's going on there. Might that be possible, Stuart? Both Stuarts.
I'm looking for Will. I mean, the information from JIAC and IAC will be there, won't it, in terms of the completed audit plan? So we could share that possibly separate to the committee if that's helpful, because it's all in the public domain. I don't see that as a problem. And actually, just one thing to mention, actually, we did meet with RSM and discuss all of the work that we're doing individually, but on a collective perspective. And hopefully the titles might give you an idea, but just to give this committee confirmation is there's little or no overlap with the work that we're doing. We've deliberately kind of kept ourselves to our own responsibilities, but we will still share and discuss. I'm next meeting with Matthew, who's the contact over there in May, and we're meeting at least 2 times a quarter, especially when we'll be giving the opinion. So with that in mind, there's not going to be that kind of massive overlap on audits that are covering both auditors' either responsibilities or pieces of work. Sorry, Will.
Sorry, but it wasn't about the overlap between your and RSM's. It was more understanding the wider picture in terms of what RSM's covering. Dr. Green, do you want to make any comment?
But certainly, Chair. Thank you. Yes, I'm aware of the regular dialogue, Stuart, that's underway and has been for some time between your good selves and RSM. Happy, Chair, through your good self for that information to be shared, should you find it of value, certainly.
Thank you. Right, any other final questions? If not, can we agree to approve Verito's 26-27 internal audit work programme with the minor tweak on that earlier item? Is that agreed? Thank you. Okay, let's move on to item 7, the information governance plan for 26-27. This is a report of Becky Cannon, and welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, everybody. So briefly, this is the first time that Combined Authority we've done an individual information governance plan, because up until December last year, Veritao were the overarching data protection officer and compliance. So we've separated that out now. So this is the plan going forward for 26-27, and the key priorities are on both documents. On the main document, the top cover on page 37, and then the details 39 down to 49. My main priority is getting everything a bit more consistent across the sort of the 3 parts of the Combined Authority. So the sort of more central services, fire and rescue, and sorry, I should know this one because that was where I was, policing, fire and crime. So that's the main priority, and put that across. This will be, I think, a question to come up from you, Chair, before the meeting around who signs this off. It is the senior information risk owner, sorry, couldn't think of the word, which is the CIRO, who is Rachel Antonelli. So it will get signed off by her, but when she's back. So that will all be sorted and signed off. Did anyone have any questions about the body of the plan?
Dr. Green.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Becky. Just by way of one of the key priorities being to develop a consistent approach, Chair, which seems entirely appropriate and entirely reasonable. I know from discussions with Roman, who chairs the IAC, and indeed from experience at North Yorkshire Police, both of those parts of the MCA are absolutely, as you'd expect, are fully committed to meeting their regulatory and compliance obligations. The volume of requests that come through does fluctuate and has fluctuated across the years. It's fair to say that some of the requests that are received are, shall we say, not in the spirit with which the legislation is intended. I'm choosing my words very carefully, you appreciate. How mindful are we of that in seeking to develop a consistent approach?
No, absolutely. So take it, just to clarify, you're talking about mainly freedom of information requests and environmental information regulations, just to clarify that. Yeah, so like you said, we get requests in from all over the place. I now have oversight of all of them across the three parts. They can, FOIs can come and in EIRs can come in from a variety of places, and we take them all on merit, and they are dealt with as sort of applicant blind and motive blind. We do have to do that, but we are looking at, again, bringing things together, having so there's two out of the three currently have a disclosure log online, so people can already go and see what's already published. And my plan is to, again, there's some technical issues around sort of, we're still on 3 separate websites, but there will be, the plan is to have a disclosure log for any FOI that comes, or EIR that comes in, regardless of which part they're asking the question of. So then people, before they put FOIs in, can go and see what's already been published. That answers your question.
Yeah. Thank you. So you're hoping that that will be achieved for all 3 this year?
I can't guarantee this year, because it's sort of, a lot of it is based on the Combined Authority sorting out a website, and that's kind of a really big project. But I will, sort of, because I've got oversight of all of them, I can sort of see that there is the consistency, and I'm looking at getting an inf on the sort of more central services, economy, transport side, getting like an interim disclosure log on the CA website, so that there is that, everything is there for everyone to see, although it will be on 3 separate websites at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions from members? If I could just add one, I very much welcome what you're saying there. I think in terms of your key priorities in 4.1, transparency is also quite important, and I know the Mayor is quite cited on that. So whether that ought to be reflected as a priority in your work.
Yes, no, absolutely. Helpful. And again, that's some work I'm doing around the awareness for everybody. It's not just about the like FOIs and security incidents, because people need to know about those, but it is also about the sorry, thinking of the words, some more proactive publishing, because the more that's on there already, if nothing else, it can prevent further FOIs because the information is already there. So that, again, is an education piece, and that's on my sort of training and awareness piece for the year as well.
That's great to hear. Thank you. Right. If we move then to the recommendations, our members, do you agree to note the 2026-27 plan with that additional issue of the transparency? Okay, thank you very much. Right, so let's then move on to the Data Protection Officer's report. Again.
This is, again, the first time I've done this separately, because it was before kind of combined with the Veritao one. So we've taken out just the information governance part of that. Again, I've tried to put in sort of statistics that I hope will be relevant for this forum. And what I've done is I have set it out with the same themes and topics so that are in the information governance plan. So hopefully that makes it easy to kind of track progress over the year. So I have done that for this time. So it's set out with in the same order as the plan. I suppose just one thing to highlight, because I know there's a lot of documents you've had to go through this time. I think just a question you'd asked, Chair, at the last meeting, which was my first one, around awareness around security incidents and things. And so what I've done over the last, so now what I do every month across the entire organisation is send out a like a bite-size awareness. So I've done 4 now. So I've done how to report a security incident, or a personal data breach rather, what an FOI is, what it might look like, how to deal with it, and also how to use Outlook safely to prevent data breaches, because that is one of the, out of all the data I have, it's one of the easiest things. You send an email to the wrong person because you've not really looked at who the addressee is. So I'm doing that as a bit of an awareness across the piece. So just to highlight that. But did anyone have any questions on the report, which covers December to February, just because I didn't have all the stats for all of March?
Okay, Councillor Basterman.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Becky, for that. And it's good to hear you do your bite-sized chunks once a month. Is there any training given as well to staff to make them aware, along with your bite-sized chunks?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is across the sort of, although we are one organisation, all the training is sort of still separate, but all 3 parts, so fire rescue, policing, fire and crime, and central economy transport, have mandatory e-learning on data protection and managing information that everyone does when they join, and they have to do every 2 years. So I'm just getting the data for central services, and just making sure that everyone is up to date on that. And going forward, I'll get across the board monthly sort of basically a list of who's not done it, so I can be chasing. So don't want to be on my list. So there you go. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Lunn.
Thank you, Chair. I assume you do testing as well as training. In North Yorkshire, we've always done testing where we send out pretend phishing emails, etc., and analyze the reactions. And even though it's not a sacking offence as such, it's an avenue for retraining.
No, absolutely. It is a really good way of, not like you said, not telling people off, but kind of sort of reminding people that could have been a real email. I don't know if it's something that's been done again, we're on 3 separate IT systems. I don't know if it's been done on the central services side, but I can definitely speak to IT about doing that. They definitely do it on the fire and policing, fire and crime, because they sit on police IT. So they have done that, and they've done them relatively recently. And again, it is a really good way of just highlighting it, because people get the email and then they get the shock of like, oh, what have I done? And then so yeah, we do use those, but I'll see if IT can do it for the other part as well.
Yeah, we also supply a dedicated email address to report these things, so that they can do it quickly.
Yes. Yeah. No, they've got, and this is part of the awareness that I've been trying to build, is like, so that people know where the email address is, so that it helps with that reporting. So if you have an incident, you're not scrabbling around like and waiting 3 weeks before you can find an email address. So,
Okay.
you've got time. It might be worth us doing that. Stick it on everyone's laptops. Yeah.
We have to target the members as well. We have to be on our.
No, absolutely, yes. So, no.
Right. If I can just ask a quick one about para 4.2 and all those subject access requests. Are we tweaking the website so that people are more likely to go to the right place in the first instance?
Yes, sorry, I was just reminding myself of what I'd actually written. Yes, we have, it is on there quite clearly, but that doesn't always stop people, because I think one of people see, I think sometimes the PFC address comes up, above North Yorkshire Police. And because our website is quite clear, it comes up and then they message us. Whereas trying to find subject access request information for North Yorkshire Police is there, but it doesn't kind of pop up as much. So I have spoken to North Yorkshire Police about if they can try and make their website a bit more obvious. But to be fair, we get the same with freedom of information requests. So people will see PFC and then ask something like, how many tractor thefts have there been? So we always redirect people, however much we put it clearly on the website. So it's no problem with that.
Thank you for that, and thank you for answering all the questions so ably. Right. Members are recommended to note the 2026-27 Information Governance Plan. Is that agreed? Thank you very much. Then let's move on to the, data protection report, should I say? Sorry, I've lost my place here. And that was, I should have referred to the Data Protection Officer report in that recommendation. Apologies. Right, move on to item 9, the risk register update. And that's Debbie Walton. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Before I move on, Chair, I'd just like to acknowledge a minor typing error in the recommendations at 2.2 and 12.2. The recommendation should refer to Table 3 and paragraph 4.3. It's a typing error, so I just wanted to express my apologies for that. Re-referencing it wouldn't fundamentally change the content of the paper. It's just a typing error. So, Chair, members, I'm presenting the Directorate Risk Registers for your oversight today. And in addition to that, an executive summary has also been produced in Appendix 6. And this is intended to complement rather than to replace the full risk registers. And it's designed to highlight some key information and to make some of the information more inclusive to you. And it's following the comments that were made in January about the size of those risk registers and the ability to be able to manoeuvre around such huge tools, quite frankly, because they are significant operational tools. In addition to this, I seek your comments around the executive summary particularly, and any views you've got around that. And in addition to this, I seek endorsement of the recommendations outlined in Table 3. So when I came into post in January, the first thing that I did was to complete a rationalisation exercise of both the corporate and the Directorate Risk Registers. And when I say rationalisation, what I mean really is a systematic review. A lot has changed in our structures of an organisation, in the pace of change within this organisation. So that what I did and what the review has done is remove any duplication, ensure that risk sits at the correct organisational level in accordance with the risk procedure, and to ultimately improve clarity, make the details smarter, and ensure that there's appropriate and measured accountability documented in these risk registers, fundamentally to ensure consistency across this combined authority. It's important for me to note at this stage that no risk has been removed. It's also important for me to emphasise that the current high-level directorate risks are still managed at corporate level. It still needs that strategic oversight to enable us to manage risk effectively and meaningfully as an organisation. And our senior leadership team are dedicated and focused on that as well. So if you will, this has been more of a spring clean of the risk registers, just to set out the baselines for the significant progress that I intend to make in the next 12 months in making sure that risk mitigation identification is reported consistently and acknowledged, and that we continue to build on a risk-aware culture. So in summary, the paper outlines the key directorate risks and mitigations in place. So members are asked to note these risk registers. And then the paper outlines some recommendations to ultimately remove duplication. So members are asked to approve the recommendations set out in Table 3. I'm happy to take any questions or provide any further information if you
Can I very much welcome this report and the progress that has been made in terms of us now getting the detail at the second level, which is extremely important. Could I just ask a first question? Below at the third level, in terms of project management, where are we on that? And a more specific question, issues that are scoring highly at level 2 are coming up to level 1, as you indicate. What is happening with issues that are highly rated at levels 3? Do we are there any there, and are we going to see them in future reports?
So thank you for that question. In terms of the first part of your question, in terms of project and programme risk. Oh, sorry. So
you do need to put these things in front, right in front of you.
No, it's fine, thank you. In terms of programme and project risk, we are in a developing stage of maturity as an organisation, and I am systematically identifying our key internal stakeholders from a project and programme point of view to ensure that, I suppose, they're empowered and confident of the policy and the procedure, and that they are identifying risk as it emerges. But I suppose more importantly than that is making sure that the governance structure that you touched on in the second half of your question is there to support officers to ensure that they can escalate risk effectively and quickly in response to any emerging concerns that they have. The idea over the rest of this year is that we become more preventative in our approach to risk as opposed to responsive, and that we start to really effectively horizon scan, because there's a lot of risk that's going to impact this combined authority and our partners over this year and the coming years. So in answer to that question, it is a continued focus. Primarily, that is my focus in terms of empowering officers, all officers, to feel confident in mitigating risk. And it's an area of key focus where I'm speaking to key stakeholders throughout. And I'm actually doing a tour of the team meetings in May, not just to talk about risk management and mitigation, but to also talk about to triangulate other matters such as Verital audits and the importance of engagement with Verital to ensure that outcomes are then triangulated back into risk registers. And then on your final point in terms of governance structures, I've ensured that for the rest of this year, all escalation points are mapped into directorate management team meetings and CALT. So there is systematic review scheduled for the rest of the year, and I'm working on a 3-year plan so that they're all in advance, and that there are touch points for every single escalation point of risk.
Okay, thanks very much. I mean, I do realise you have a massive task, so I'm not trying to add to that, but I'd just like to come back to the specific of my second question. You know, we obviously see the high level stuff. So some of those high level things are fairly general. So if we've got reputational risks around delivery of individual programs, we don't know, you know, if 3 of the programs of you know, the housing, the transport, the skills are working all right, but there's a 4th program that isn't working very well and has got a high risk. How do we know that? Because the amalgamated high level indicator isn't necessarily going to tell us that.
So in terms of not just identifying risk on the risk register, so you're talking about the interdependencies between the risks, is that right, in terms of how they affect each other? So the governance structure enables us to, and I submit a report to the governance structure, and I intend to do our governance structure, and I intend to do that to pick out key themes, not just across that first line of defence in terms of programme and project, but in terms of what are the directorate risks, what are the patterns that are emerging, what are the dependencies, and then that happens again at CALT. So I do some very specific strategic reporting, which analyses trend and emerging issues. And hopefully, when I come back to this meeting, I'll be able to report on trend and codependencies, and then we can talk about how that might impact our business going forward and the mitigations that are put in place for that. Does that answer your question?
No, it doesn't, because whilst I know our primary remit is to be strategic, nonetheless, the delivery of key programmes by the combined authority is a matter of considerable import, both to us, to the main combined authority. So, how do we have sight on programmes where there are problems if we're only getting a generalised indicator at the top? It may be escalated to the directorate level, but how do we have sight on that?
So in terms of, I have to submit, I submit reports to you to discuss the risk registers, and I think in terms of the policy and procedure, it talks about the frequency that I come back and report those. I think I might be, sorry. In the annual report, in section 10, there are some significant risks that the organisation has anticipated, and those are laid out and summarised. Is there anything additional that the committee would like to see that maybe is not happening right now that I could contribute in future meetings?
Perhaps I'll have a further one-to-one outside this meeting, because I think I've flagged the issue, and I think can see some nods. So I think it's one that we do need to make sure that we've got the right balance in terms of reporting. Okay, can I just ask one more specific issue now that we've actually got the directorate risk registers? I'm going to particularly pick up T6 on page 77 of the papers. And unfortunately, it was a bit easier when I was reading it online. I could blow it up. But the risk here is addressed in terms of engagement with stakeholders and the reporting and so on, in terms of the successful delivery of local transport plans. But the reality is transport is a very contentious area. There's often very mixed public views about issues, but there's actually no reference to public engagement or public ownership of the issues and decisions that are made, which is vital if you are going to successfully deliver more difficult transport schemes. So I think this T6 risk needs to be amended to address that aspect of how we deliver local transport plans and the consultation and engagement processes on them.
So regarding the current discussions between the LA and CA around transport challenges, it wouldn't be appropriate for me to specifically comment on those. However, as a guardian of this process, what I can do is address how we're working with transport to make sure that they are articulating their risk in a really smart, specific, measurable way. And the living document that you see before you is very much an organic tool that flexes with the complexity of the operating environment. And as such, this is a snapshot in time. And I think this risk register was produced in early March. The ongoing objective is to support the drilling down of these broad headings into specific mitigation strategies. We have a workshop specifically with the Transport Directorate, which is planned for the 22nd of June to work on their risk register specifically. Veritao helped us last year to undertake some targeted workshops with our central services and our economy directorates, and we are extending that offer through to transport to strengthen this particular risk register. So we'll bring this back for further scrutiny.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions out of all that? Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a general question for my own curiosity as much as anything else. Risk registers in local authority world, are there anything other than paper exercises? And I'm saying that more for a point of, is anybody ever held accountable when projects go massively wrong? And I know Mark sat there and he probably gets what I'm driving at with various projects in York that's gone way over budget. Again, they all have the risk registers produced, but at the end of the day, if things go wrong or when they go wrong, nobody's ever held accountable. So what's the purpose of it all?
So I believe that risk identification and mitigation is crucial to good contract management in every part of our business, and in all of our partners' business as well. I fundamentally agree with that principle, and that is underpinned by our policy and our procedure in that we are a risk-aware organisation. Now, a risk register is never going to remove risk completely, and we don't have a crystal ball, unfortunately. I acknowledge and accept that to some people, the maintenance of a risk register can be seen as a desktop paper exercise, but that is not what this combined authority is doing. It's not what my passion is for where we are going over the next 12 months. Our risk registers will be representative of the actions that we are taking to manage the risks that we face in quite a complex environment at the moment during an ever-changing organisation as well. So in answer to your question, yeah, I do acknowledge that, and I do see it in what I do in my role. I do see people who consider it to be a paper-based exercise, but part of my role as a guardian for this process is to embed the culture of risk awareness, and that will be what I am measured on over this next 12 months.
Yeah, thanks for that explanation. So you would commit, would you not, to regular reports, and if there were risks that were spiraling out of control, you would highlight them, unlike a situation that Mark knows I'm talking about when risks are hidden for 2 years. This committee, you would commit to updating if the risks are spiraling out of control.
That is the purpose of the risk registers. That is the whole purpose of them, to identify high-level risk, medium risk, low risk. I commit to maintaining our policy and procedure in that area, and I commit to providing reports to this committee to ensure full transparency of our risk registers. Now, I'm not a technical specialist in terms of what is contained within those risk registers. We've got specialist teams, but my role as a guardian of this policy and procedure is to make sure that the committee has full access to them, to enable them to scrutinise them, and then provide assistance to improve them where necessary, and provide feedback. That's exactly what I'm here to do. So yes, I commit to that.
Good explanation, thank you.
Right. Thank you very much for that. Right. If there's no other questions, can we move to the amended recommendations in terms of noting and commenting, which we have done, on the corporate and directorate risk registers, and then secondly to endorse the recommendations set out in table 3 and paragraph 4.3 arising from the rationalisation of the Directorate in Corporate Risk Registers. Is that agreed? Thank you very much. Right. Sorry, Councillor Broadbent.
Just on the report itself, presentation and the information.
Very difficult to read.
Very difficult to read. And to be honest, you need to be quite bold and brave to sort of sit there and think, can I read it? And am I going to sit through and read it? And what's really, there's quite a lot on some of these reports like that. And the value of it, because of the way it's presented, to me, isn't that great. Because I think, well, no, I'm not going to read all that. It just isn't.
We'll ask officers to take that away. We have made the point previously, and in terms of standards for members of the public to access these, there are members of the public who have more limited eyesight and so on who will struggle to read. I mean, I'm struggling to read, and with my glasses, I actually have quite reasonable, normal reading abilities. So anyway, I think we've made the point. We've made the point. So we'll ask officers to take that away. Thank you.
Where it's so detailed, but it's actually printed and provided in a printed form to members.
Well, you should see how badly it comes out in the printed. It's impossible to read.
Yeah. You could look at how we could get that.
Yes. You did. Okay, so the point has been quite strongly made around the table, and we'll ask officers to make sure this is addressed for future reports. Thank you.
So in other words, next time we meet, there won't be anything like this being presented to us.
We will not see stuff that is unreadable either on paper or online.
And if there is, we'll send it back.
Thank you for raising that, Councillor Broadbent. So let's move on, please, to the Risk Management Annual Report 25/26. Debbie again.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this paper is to present the Risk Management Annual Report 25/26 for the general budgets area of the organisation. So within the report, I've set out some recommendations for minor changes to the risk management procedure to improve usability. Following advice from governance specialists, there's a recommendation that the risk management policy and the risk management procedure potentially may be considered separately in future. And that's primarily because the procedure serves as an operational document and sets out the processes and standards for operational teams. And processes may be subject to regular change, and that's for a myriad of reasons, best practice changes, guidance changes. But that would enable us to facilitate more agile decision making if they were separate and the procedure didn't have to go through to CA. The report outlines that no changes to the risk management policy are recommended at this stage, but an interim review in summer 2026 is recommended following the ongoing work for the corporate plan. The key summary points in the paper are the rationalisation exercise, which I've previously just discussed in item 9. And the report outlines the overall risk profile that's remained stable but has continued to evolve throughout the last year. 3 themes stand out in regards to organisational risk. The first one being organisational integrity and capacity, so that's the ability to absorb new functions and ensure that sufficient resource in key directorates is available to deliver those functions. The second one is delivery confidence and reputation, and that's about our ability as powers expand to demonstrate consistent delivery, to maintain confidence from central governments, partners and communities. And then the third theme was around governance maturity. So that's around tailored governance arrangements, strong political alignment and transparent decision making. And in the report, I've set out some targeted work that I plan to do in 26/27, delivered at greater pace, to work primarily on stronger harmonisation with the policing, fire and crime directorates, to ensure that risk processes are applied consistently across our organisation, to strengthen awareness and the confidence in identifying risk and being able to manage that risk, escalate and de-escalate that risk, and to ensure continuous improvement on how information is interpreted and used. The paper also highlights a maturity assessment, which gives us a comprehensive look at our current baseline and where we'd hope to be in around 12 months. So we've identified some emerging strengths there, but some key areas for improvement that are needed over the next 12 months. So in summary, the committee is asked to approve the risk management annual report, including the recommendation and progression plan set out within the report. To note that in preparation of the risk management annual report, no changes are proposed to the risk management policy, and to endorse the policy for continued use in this next year, and then to approve the proposed amendments to the risk management procedure as detailed in the risk management report ahead of submission to the Combined Authority Board for final approval. And to endorse that the procedure will be considered separately by the committee in future for the reasons outlined in the paper. I'm happy to take any questions at this stage.
Okay, has anyone got any questions apart from myself? Right. Page 172 and the in terms of the recommendations and progression plan and taking action to reduce risks. Item 3 on the list refers to reviewing how risk registers are summarised for the Audit and Governance Committee to ensure the format is accessible and inclusive, which we've just recently touched on, but more importantly, enabling committee members to easily identify the relevant information and probe further where necessary. I just wondered how you're going to go about doing that. Are you going to do a questionnaire to members of this committee and the Combined Authority, or a workshop, or
So
how are you thinking about doing that?
Yes. Sorry, the sun was shining on the mic. Sorry, I couldn't see it. So what I have attempted to do in this round of reporting is to provide an executive summary for you, and I was hoping that that might enable you to read some of the key information that's on those huge documents. However, I have spoken to Veritao about extending an offer to the entire committee at some point during this next 12 months at a time that would be convenient for you, to enable us to really build how we present things to the committee, to make it more inclusive and accessible to you. If you would like that option, put that in our work plan. So we can develop a workshop where we look at reporting tools, develop something that's meaningful for you, rather than me going away and arbitrarily producing something that may or may not be helpful. It's absolutely can be led by you. We do have capacity within our SLA to do that. The offer is there for you, and I would like to empower you to feel empowered, I suppose, in that way.
I think that might be helpful. We'll obviously need to deal with that offline in terms of making arrangements. Perhaps we can do something before one of our formal meetings, depending on how much time is required, to make sure we are addressing this. Okay, can I then move on to further down the page? Item 7, develop an internal management information system on a shared space for key stakeholders to access risk registers. Who were you envisaging to be the key stakeholders?
So the key stakeholders at the minute are the people that are currently managing those risk registers, and it's to highlight a risk that I've identified, in that there is a significant dependence on Excel spreadsheets at the minute, and lots of different versions of risk registers are being used. So the up-to-date versions need to be kept in a centralised place. So it's one of my priorities over this next year to make sure that all risk registers are kept in one centralised place. People aren't removing them and taking copies of them, so that we have an up-to-date depository of our risk registers. So that's what that item refers to specifically.
Okay, thank you. Item 8 on there is giving renewed focus to programme and project risks, including identifying gaps in knowledge, ensuring governance structures are effective and consistent in the monitoring of risk. Just declaring my sort of interest as a professional civil engineer. One of the big issues, and it comes back to what Mark was talking about earlier with some of the projects that the city councils run, is problems with estimates, optimism bias, which is a well-known issue. I wondered how you were dealing with the optimism bias and whether that needs to be specifically additionally referenced in here. But also, obviously, there's the interaction between the combined authority or its agents and the actual contractors and consultants who are delivering schemes, who, how are we ensuring that our risk registers properly reflect the risk registers that the consultants and contractors will, I'm assuming, be required to have as part of their projects. So there's obviously a coordination issue there, and again, should that be explicitly referenced?
So in regards to your comment about optimism bias, that is indeed a question in the National Audit Office questionnaire that we've used to measure our levels of maturity. So that has been considered when we look at our baseline, where we are now and where we want to be in 12 months. So it absolutely is reported on in regards to, I suppose, the wiring that sits underneath this report. But, in future, we could probably make that more clear in terms of the questions that contribute towards that NAO maturity baseline, if that is helpful for you. In regards to contract management, you are absolutely right. There are codependencies between operational risk registers and the risk registers that we hold, and ultimately there is an expectation that there is effective contract management happening within this organisation. And part of what I'm doing when I'm doing my rounds of speaking to programme and projects managers and contract managers is to ensure that they feel confident and comfortable in being able to ask for that information from their key suppliers. But it's also, over the next year, what I'd like to do is understand who are our key suppliers. There's quite a lot of geopolitical issues at the moment that are happening across the region, across the UK and wider internationally. This may put undue pressure on supply chains. So it's important for us to understand codependencies and if there are any issues regarding bottlenecks in the supply chain. So absolutely, that is an ongoing piece of work, and that will be reflected in future reporting.
Okay, thank you for those assurances. If there's no other questions, can we turn to the, Cliff, Councillor Lunn.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we ought to understand, excuse me, that risk is a necessary thing. We can't be 100% risk averse. And these risk registers are there to help us make decisions. And all of us will be in situations where decisions have been made, and there has been a risk, quite a high risk, yet the decisions had to be made because of our what we want to do as a council. Probably even this building is an example of that. But we must realise that risk is inherent in almost everything we do. Thank you.
Absolutely. Right. In terms of in terms of the recommendations, can I suggest in terms of 11.1, we approve the risk management annual report 25-26, including the recommendations and progression plan set out within the report, and taking on board the comments that have and issues that have been raised around the table. And then 11.2 and 11.3 as printed. Is that agreeable? Yep, thank you. Right, we've been going an hour. Do members want a 5-minute convenience break, or happy to continue? Sorry? Right, okay, excellent. Right, let's move on then to item 11, the significant weaknesses update, and Ben Cookson, welcome, is here to present that as Mike Russell's unavailable. Yes, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everybody. I'm here to present an update on the significant governance weaknesses identified in the 24-25 annual governance statement and highlighted by our external auditors. The purpose of the report is to update the committee on progress made in addressing those weaknesses following the committee's request at the February meeting. Members are asked to note the progress set out in the report. The weaknesses fall into 5 areas. I'll summarise each briefly. However, you have elsewhere on the agenda, there are detailed reports from information governance, risk, external audit, internal audit as well. So just on the first weakness identified is the medium-term financial strategy, the MTFS. So the authority did not have an approved MTFS during 24-25, which limited long-term financial planning. Since then, progress has been substantial. Following the 2025 government spending review, the combined authority approved a full medium-term financial plan through to 28-29. That was approved in February. And this now provides a stable planning framework with further refinement as strategies and funding arrangements evolve. Just touching briefly on risk and performance management. At inception, the combined authority lacked a formal risk policy and performance framework. As Debbie's laid out earlier, this has now been addressed. A full policy and framework are in place with risk reporting established for general budgets. On the performance side, auditors highlighted the absence of a documented framework with clear KPIs. A draft framework has now been produced, is progressing through Office of Governance, and internal audit has been engaged to support a clear development plan. Number 3, financial management and governance. Auditors identified weaknesses in the timeliness and quality of the accounts and insufficient evidence to support the 23-24 audit, with a disclaimer of opinion issued for both 23-24 and 24-25. Significant improvements have been made since. The finance team has now been strengthened to 7 substantive posts. A detailed close down plan is in place, and group reporting and committee governance arrangements have been clarified. The quality of statements has improved, and the organisation is better positioned for future audits. Information governance, number 4. So the annual governance statement and internal audit identified immature information governance, FOI, compliance issues and policy gaps. As Becky's outlined earlier on the agenda, that has now significantly improved. Just to note that FOI compliance has improved from 74% up to 85%. And finally, just point 5, internal audit scope limitations. So Veritas issued a limited opinion for 24-25 due to the first year nature of systems and limited audit coverage. A joint assurance framework has now been approved, allowing Veritas to draw on its own work and RSM assurance. So in conclusion, in summary, the authority is making structured and positive progress in addressing the significant governance weaknesses identified last year. While some areas remain in development, the direction of travel is clear and the foundations for stronger governance are now in place. Further updates will be brought back to the committee as this work continues. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, can I just kick off? You mentioned the improvement of the FOI compliance rate to 85%, but if you go back to page 52 in the earlier report, that referred to us still being at 74%. So I'm slightly confused.
So I think that might have been a typo by me, that it is 85, not,
Right.
and I didn't change it in the report. Apologies for that. So we are definitely in a better place than we were previously. Sorry about that.
Excellent. That's very reassuring, and very much welcome the progress that is referred to here generally. Right. Are there any other questions? Dr. Green.
Chair, thank you. And thank you, Ben, for the update. Just by way of the timeliness and quality of the statement of accounts through you, Chair, I think that the point is made, Ben, regarding unforeseen challenges arising rather than the lack of a clear plan. Clearly, in recent years, Chair, some of those challenges have indeed been completely unforeseen. These things just seem to emerge by way of regulatory requirements and so on. How confident are you, Ben, and your colleagues in the finance team, that you've captured each and every potential challenge that might be coming at us over the horizon, and incorporated those challenges into your new plan for timely close down?
Thank you for the question. So in terms of the team that's been built significantly since I started 4 months ago, I mean, recruitment plans were already in place, so the team has grown significantly. There are some skilled professionals in the team now, and we're able to share the work. We do have a clear plan forward, and I'm confident that we can deliver the statement of accounts, working closely with fire and police colleagues as well.
Supplementary, if that's okay. I'm mindful, Ben, it's difficult to put a number on these things or a scale, but just by way of your confidence that we now have an effective plan in place, there might be, who knows, there might well be other unforeseen challenges around things like valuation requirements and so on, which may hit us, completely blindside us. But by way of what we know and by way of what we might plan for, what's your degree of confidence that everything's been captured now?
Thank you. So I'm only talking about general budgets here. The general budget side of things in terms of assets that we own is very small in terms of value and amount. We're talking about pieces of IT equipment, maybe some office furniture. So there's no concerns there specifically around valuation. You know, my approach in finance is we can take on any challenge that we meet. Finance is always unpredictable. There's always challenges in the public sector. We just have to take on them challenges as and when they come.
Okay, thank you. As I say, very pleasing to see the substantial progress that has and is being made to get us to the position where we don't have any of these qualifications in future. I wonder, would it be helpful if we continue to have, broadly speaking, quarterly updates on this, perhaps in a simple table with the recommendations and whether progress is on track on those, or if there isn't some additional information, would that be possible, Ben?
Thank you, Councillor. It is possible, but I think it may work better potentially to work this through the risk framework rather than actually a separate report, because some of these issues have now been fulfilled. I think the risk management framework is probably a better route.
Okay, thank you. Are we then happy to note the progress update and welcome? Shall I suggest note and welcome the progress update set out in this report as written? Those agreement, thank you. Right, let's move on then to item 12, the External Audit Strategy and Completion Report for 2024-2025. Mark.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we've got two reports for you this morning for relating to 24-25. I'm going to pass you over to Sophie, who will give you the highlights of both, and then we can take questions at the end.
Thanks, Mark. So the first is our combined audit strategy and completion report, and this outlines our audit approach that we followed ahead of the end of February backstop deadline. So we issued a disclaimed audit opinion under the backstop arrangements and followed the minimum procedures that had to be carried out. However, we did also complete a number of audit procedures to begin rebuilding the assurance that we lost from previous years and also from the 24-25 audit. From this work, there were several audit adjustments that we did identify, and the material ones are set out on page 18 of our report. The report also includes commentary on your value for money arrangements at the Combined Authority, and more detail is provided in the second report that we've got for you, the Auditor's Annual Report. Page 27, we set out the fees payable to PSAA. We have proposed a reduction to this fee based on the fact that we had a backstopped audit this year, and that's currently under consideration by the PSAA. On the second report in the Auditor's Annual Report, this summarises the work that we did during the year for our VFM. We identified 4 significant weaknesses relating to oversight of the group's internal audit functions, development and monitoring of a medium-term financial plan, development of a performance management and risk framework, and also building sufficient capacity with the authority's finance team. We also raised 2 additional recommendations, which are in relation to the annual governance statement, making sure that it reflects the findings across the whole combined authority, so fire and police included, and also ensuring that those charged with governance have appropriate oversight of police and fire in line with the authority's constitution. Our report, it's important to note that our report was drafted and finalised at the point that we shared it with you in February. There has obviously been progress since that, but our opinion and the findings that we made were based on what was in place during 24-25. We don't propose to add anything further, but happy to take any questions if there are any.
Okay. Any questions on? We'll stick to the first report in the first instance. Any questions on item 12, the external audit strategy and completion report? No. If there isn't, can we agree to note that report? Yep, it's agreed. Thank you. And then the annual report 2024-25. Any questions on that? No. Okay. We have seen an awful lot of this before, so hopefully we've made most of those questions previously. Okay, are we happy to note the second report? That's agreed. Excellent, thank you. Right, let's move on then to item 14, the 2025-26 Q3 Treasury Management Update. And that's again, Ben.
Thank you, Councillor. Apologies for the delay then, I was just trying to find my notes. So yes, I'm here to present the Q3 Treasury Management Update. This is in line with SIPFA guidance. Just to briefly outline what's in the report, there's no currently borrowings through the general budget at the moment. Our Treasury Management services are provided through the North Yorkshire Council SLA, which is a pooled arrangement for investments. And currently the interest earned up to Q3 is 2.4 million. I'm happy to take any further questions on that report.
Are there any questions? I'll just ask one brief one. On Appendix 3, the listing of countries for investments. You've got under the AA, Abu Dhabi and Qatar. Given events in the Middle East, I just wondered how appropriate that continues to be. Do we have arrangements for sort of rapid response to these types of, I shouldn't really laugh, but these types of external events? Oh, apologies, I've gone on one. Have I? Strategy. I wrote my note down on the wrong paper. Apologies. We'll come to that one in a moment. So are there any other questions then on the first paper? No. Can we then agree to the recommendation to note the contents of the report, including the Treasury Management activities and financial positions of the Combined Authority as at Q3 of the 2025-26 financial year? Is that agreed? Thank you. Right, item 15, the 2026-27 Treasury Management Strategy, which is again Ben, and you've got advance notice of my question.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this paper is the Treasury Management Strategy for the Combined Authority. The purpose of this paper is to propose the annual Treasury Management Strategy for the Combined Authority's general budget. That's at Appendix 1. Set any required forward-looking indicators for prudential or Treasury activities that are applicable to the Combined Authority general budget. Those are in Appendix 2, and also present the prudential and Treasury management indicators across the whole Mayoral Combined Authority for police, fire and general budgets. That's in Appendix 2 as well. So just to let you know that each part of the Combined Authority still operates separate banking, treasury and governance arrangements. Therefore, a separate Treasury Management Strategy has been produced for 26-27. The fire and police Treasury Management Strategies were approved by the Deputy Mayor for Fire, Police and Crime in February, the Appendix 7 and 8. And just to let you know that the Treasury Management Strategy is informed by the advice of the North Yorkshire Council Treasury team through the SLA and also external Treasury advisors, MUFG. I can go and just answer your question as well. Just in terms of, I have made a note, I know we discussed this briefly at the previous meeting. There is a note in there, I believe, at point 3.6 down. You can see in the report, you know, there is always an element of risk when writing these strategies, and that's why we use professional advice such as MUFG and also the SLA through North Yorkshire Council. So when risks do evolve, we do take that advice from the advisors.
Thank you for that assurance and for presenting the report. Are there any questions? No, I'm not seeing any. Are we then happy to agree the printed recommendations? It's agreed. Right, let's move on then to item 16, the briefing note on the mayoral commentary and use of resources. I've got Carol Rehill, yes, to report on that.
Thank you, Chair. I'm presenting this report on behalf of my colleague, Paul Clark, who is on leave today. I understand this report was requested in January this year, and it looks at the ability of the Mayor to comment on issues both within and outside the Combined Authority's responsibilities, and to clarify how official resources and communication channels must be used. So the report sort of concludes that the Mayor has both statutory powers and also soft powers. The soft powers are recognised in the English Devolution White Paper, which recognises elected mayors as public leaders with a mandate to represent their areas and influence policy at a local and national level. It also recognised, however, that the Combined Authority is a statutory body with defined legal functions, and there are legislative restrictions in terms of the use of resources and publicity. The report concludes that whilst there are those statutory and some publicity limitations, the Mayor is free to make comment on matters outside of the Combined Authority's responsibility in its personal in their personal and private capacity, and using their personal resources. And personal comments do not represent the authority or commit resources and do not prevent lawful decision making, provided the Mayor keeps an open mind. So happy to take any questions.
Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Chair. So where does that leave the original complaint? Is it to be discussed as a standards matter? Is it then going to fall within the remit of this committee as governance matters?
Councillor Waters, I wasn't privy to the original complaint, but I understand from talking to my colleague Paul that the complaint related to a personal comment which related to the mayor, which was using the mayor's personal resources. So I can follow that up and reply.
Well, I certainly think I shall follow it up in writing, because that was not the impression that the mayor gave. The mayor was making commentary on a matter in America that was certainly not within his remit, and which was joined up with a number of other mayors as though it was an official communique. So you're now saying that, in your opinion, that was a personal communication.
I'm not privy to, I can't comment on it myself. I wasn't privy to it. I'm not aware of the particular circumstance. I'm happy to follow it up. Obviously, the mayor is subject to a code of conduct, which they're required to do. My reading of the report is that whilst mayors are generally expected to focus on matters within their functions and powers, there are no specific restrictions on commentary on matters outside of those functions, other than the use of resources and the publicity requirements that are referred to in the report. That's my reading.
I'll leave it to see whether other members are content with all this, or whether they would like to see it brought back to as a proper agenda item to a future meeting.
I think the drift that we had at the last meeting from Paul was it was essentially a standards complaint, not an audit and governance issue. My recollection.
As I said, yeah, the mayor is subject to the code of conduct, so there are abilities to make complaints under the code of conduct. Yeah.
Councillor Lunn.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Chair. I agree with you. At the last meeting, we did express the opinion that this was a standards matter, but has it actually been referred to standards? Could we follow that up somehow?
I'm not aware, but I will follow it up.
Yeah.
Chairman, as I was subbing at the last meeting, I'll be honest, I sat there in total ignorance of what you're discussing, because I wasn't aware of what's been alleged, and I'm still not aware of what's been alleged, so I can't contribute really. Thank you.
Someone happy to, someone move something, that the recommendation was that the report be noted. Clearly, if individual members wish to pursue this separately, as has been indicated, then that's obviously their right to do so. But in terms of the information that we requested, we have had this report. So I'll move that it be noted. Yes. Is that seconded? Seconded? Okay. Can I see those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That is noted, that report. Thank you. Right, let's move on then to item 17, the minutes from the JIAC and IAC for review. We had the extraordinary JIAC circulated with the papers. There has been a supplementary agenda circulated with the further two ordinary meetings of JIAC and IAC respectively. Does anyone want to raise any questions or issues on those three reports? Sorry, 3 sets of minutes, should I say, and draft minutes? No? Can we agree to note them then? Thank you. Is that agreed? Okay. Right. Item 18, an update on the review of the Constitution, and verbal from Carol.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So this is a standing item, as I understand it, on this agenda. There is, I'm not sure where we've got to in terms of presenting the timetable for the Constitution review. There is a draft Constitution which has been produced, which is currently in circulation. We're working through with directorates, including the PFCC and Fire, on comments on that draft. We're still hoping to meet the programme which looked at publication on the 27th of April, and then coming to this Audit and Governance Committee for comment on the 4th of May. Though I do appreciate that's quite a tight timescale, and in view of the progress that's been made on the devolution bill, that may be something that we need to just bear in mind as we progress through this. Happy to take any questions.
Yeah. Just as chair, I'd note that there was a draft timetable, but that did have a number of further meetings of the Constitution Working Group, which haven't happened. So I also have questions as to the realism of that timetable. We can't, the Constitution of this authority is an important document that we have to have proper time to consider. So I'm not sure we are going to be in a position to maintain this timetable personally. But, obviously difficult without Rachel here today. I think we'll need to take offline and keep members in contact with what's happening on that, and also the Constitution Working Group.
Thanks, Chair. Happy to take that away and have a discussion on whether or not that timetable is still realistic.
So say we've got to have adequate time. It's a big document for members to read it fully, to be able to digest, to talk to colleagues in the individual local authorities, and to work through things. So that is our prime consideration, that we treat this properly, seriously and effectively. Okay, is that agreed? Thank you. Right, programme of work as printed, last page of the heap of papers. I think my only question is, in terms of the items that are listed, all of the individual areas are scheduled for at least one meeting that we've done in the last year, or a meeting in the future year, with the exception of, under governance, monitoring and evaluation framework. So I wonder if that one ought to be timetabled, so at least within the 2-year period, we do have a look at that particular issue.
Yeah. Just in terms of that, the reason why it's blank is because obviously there's been a bit of flux in that area, and so I didn't want to commit to a date here and now, but very aware that that is the only item that's not been assigned a date as yet.
Yeah, okay. We will keep that one under review then. If there's no other comments on the work plan, can we agree to note it? Thank you. I have no urgent business, unless officers want to tell me otherwise. Date of the next meeting, additional Audit and Governance Committee to consider the review of the York and North Yorkshire Combined Authority Constitution. Will has said that if we are going to stick to the timetable, then potentially that would be on Tuesday, the 12th, sorry, of May at County Hall, as there's no rooms here. Right. So I'll just flag that to you, if you sort of make sure your diaries have it as a hold. But as I say, given the previous discussion it may not happen on that day. Okay, can I thank you all for your attendance and contributions, and thank officers for all the work that's been done. A lot of progress in those various reports. Thank you very much, and safe journey home. That concludes the meeting.